The bright lights of the diplomatic chamber made Captain John Miller squint as he adjusted his formal uniform. Earth's first official meeting with the Galactic Confederation was minutes away, and despite his 20 years of military service, he felt his heart pound against his chest. "Nervous, Captain?" Dr. Olivia Wright stood beside him, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, eyes bright with excitement. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had waited her entire career for this moment. "Just cautious," Miller replied, checking the ceremonial sword at his hip, a tradition for diplomatic functions. First impressions matter. The year was 2157. Humanity had mastered faster than light travel just 15 years ago, and quickly established colonies on Mars, Europa, and 3 planets in nearby star systems. Their rapid expansion had caught the attention of the wider galactic community. Admiral William Carter approached them, his weathered face serious. "Remember, we represent all of Earth today. The President expects a full report tonight." "Yes, sir?" Miller nodded. "Dr. Wright and I are prepared for anything." The massive doors at the end of the hall slid open with a soft hiss. 7 aliens entered, each different from the others. Their leader, taller than the rest with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. "I am Razak, ambassador of the Zoraxian Empire and representative of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said, voice translator making the words sound almost musical. "We welcome Earth to the greater community of stars." Miller stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Captain John Miller of Earth's Space Defense Force. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." Dr. Wright joined him. "Dr. Olivia Wright, representing Earth's scientific community. We are honored by your presence." The initial meetings went better than anyone hoped. For 3 days, humans and aliens exchanged information about their cultures, technologies, and histories. The Confederation, Razak explained, included 27 different species across over 300 star systems. They had maintained peace for nearly 5 centuries. On the evening of the 3rd day, Miller sat with Admiral Carter in the secure communication room of the USS Horizon, Earth's diplomatic vessel. "They're being very generous with their knowledge," Miller said. "Almost too generous." Carter nodded slowly. "I noticed that too. They've shared faster communication technology, advanced medical treatments, even some weapon systems." He leaned forward. "But they ask very specific questions about our military capacity and colony growth rates." "You think they see us as a threat?" Miller asked. "Not yet," Carter replied. "But they're assessing us. Something about Razak bothers me. His questions are too precisely targeted." The next morning, the Confederation announced a formal ceremony to welcome Earth into the galactic community. The grand hall aboard the Confederation vessel gleamed with light reflected off polished surfaces. The alien delegates wore their ceremonial attire, and Miller noticed many carried what appeared to be weapons, supposedly ceremonial like his own sword. Razak stood at a podium, 4 arms raised in what they had learned was a gesture of formal address. "People of Earth, today marks your species' entrance into a greater destiny." The translator made his voice boom across the chamber. "For the protection and advancement of all, we present the Confederation Membership Treaty." A holographic document appeared in the air before Miller and the Earth delegation. Dr. Wright began reading it quickly, her face growing paler with each section. "Captain," she whispered urgently, "this isn't what we discussed. These terms would limit Earth's expansion to our current territories. We would need Confederation approval for any new colonies or military vessels. They're even requesting authority to establish monitoring stations in Earth orbit." Miller looked at Admiral Carter, who gave a small nod. Miller stepped forward. "Ambassador Razak, we appreciate the offer of membership, but we need time to review these terms with our government. Some of these conditions were not mentioned in our earlier discussions." The chamber grew quiet. Razak's upper arms folded across his chest, while his lower arms remained at his sides. "The terms are standard for new species. Surely you understand the need for proper integration into galactic society? Your kind advances quickly, perhaps too quickly," Miller kept his voice level. "We simply request time to consult with our leadership. This is standard diplomatic procedure for Earth." Razak's skin changed from blue to a deep purple. "Your request suggests resistance. Resistance suggests danger." He made a quick gesture to the other aliens. "The Confederation has observed your rapid military buildup. Your species shows concerning aggressive tendencies. We arm ourselves for defense only," Miller said, feeling the tension rise in the room. "Earth has no hostile intentions." "So say all dangerous species," Razak replied, coldly. "The treaty will be signed today, or Earth will be declared uncooperative." Admiral Carter stepped forward. "We cannot sign an agreement without proper review. That would violate our most basic laws." Razak stared at them for a long moment. "Then, you have made your choice." He pressed something on his wrist device. Alarms blared throughout the chamber. Alien guards suddenly appeared at all exits. "What is happening?" Miller demanded. "You have been classified as a potentially hostile species," Razak stated flatly. "Until you accept Confederation protection and control, you will be contained." Miller reached for his communication device, but a strange energy field suddenly surrounded the Earth delegation. Dr. Wright collapsed beside him, caught by two guards. The other human diplomats were similarly subdued. "This is an act of war," Admiral Carter shouted as guards surrounded him. "No," Razak replied calmly. "This is prevention of war. Your kind would eventually threaten galactic stability. We have seen it before." Miller lunged forward, breaking through the energy field through sheer determination. He grabbed Dr. Wright's arm, trying to pull her away from the guards, but more energy fields appeared. "Run, Captain!" Wright shouted as the guards pulled her away. "Warn Earth!" Miller fought his way toward an exit, knowing someone had to escape to report what happened. Admiral Carter created a distraction, tackling Razak to the ground despite his age. In the confusion, Miller slipped through a service corridor. Alarms blared as he raced through the alien ship, using the schematics Dr. Wright had studied to navigate toward the shuttle bay. Behind him, he heard the heavy footsteps of guards in pursuit. 3 days later, Miller's damaged shuttle limped into Earth's orbit. His uniform was torn, his face bruised, and his eyes haunted, but he carried with him evidence of the Confederation's true intentions and news that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. As he transmitted his emergency code to Earth Defense Headquarters, he knew the peaceful future everyone had hoped for was gone. The galaxy now faced something it had never expected: humans fighting for their survival, freedom, and dignity. And Captain John Miller had seen enough of the Confederation to know one thing with absolute certainty: they had no idea what humans were capable of when threatened. 6 months had passed since the failed diplomatic mission. Captain John Miller stood at the large window in Earth Defense Headquarters, watching as workers assembled new warships in the orbital construction yards. The sight of so many vessels under construction still amazed him. Before the Confederation threat, Earth had only a small defense fleet. Now the combined nations had built more ships in 6 months than in the previous decade. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Carter joined him at the window. The older man looked tired, with new lines on his face and more gray in his hair. "Yes, sir," Miller replied. "But will it be enough?" "It has to be." Carter handed Miller a tablet. "We've spotted more Confederation ships arriving at the edge of our system. Their blockade grows stronger each week." Miller scrolled through the intelligence report. "They're preparing for something big. That's why I need you focused on our counter-tactics. Your experience with their technology and methods is invaluable." Carter placed a hand on Miller's shoulder. "I know you're worried about Dr. Wright and the others. We all are." Miller nodded grimly. Olivia Wright and 14 other humans remained prisoners of the Confederation. His escape had been the only thing that saved Earth from a surprise attack. Without his warning, humanity might already be under Confederation control. In a large laboratory several floors below, Lisa Donovan carefully adjusted the settings on her experimental weapon. As the lead engineer of Project Breakthrough, she had been working 18-hour days analyzing the debris from the diplomatic incident. "Try it now," she told her assistant, who activated the device. A beam of energy shot across the room and hit a piece of salvaged Confederation metal. Instead of bouncing off like previous attempts, the beam penetrated the metal, leaving a clean hole. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. "Get me Admiral Carter. Tell him we found our advantage." Meanwhile, in a distant part of the galaxy, Dr. Olivia Wright sat quietly in her cell aboard a Confederation prison ship. For months they had questioned her about Earth's defenses and technology. She gave them outdated information, small bits of truth mixed with misleading details. The Zoraxians and their allies believed humans were naive and truthful by nature. Wright used this misconception to her advantage. When not being questioned, she observed everything about her captors. She learned their routines, their technologies, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Her guards talked freely in front of her, believing she couldn't understand their native language. But Wright had always been a quick learner. Today, she listened carefully as two guards discussed the upcoming invasion plans. "The Council has approved the final assault," one guard said in the clicking Zoraxian language. 3 standard cycles from now, the pacification of Earth begins." "Good," replied the second guard. "I'm tired of this assignment. These humans smell strange." Wright kept her face neutral, but her mind raced. 3 cycles meant roughly 2 weeks in Earth time. Somehow, she needed to warn her people. Back on T, Earth Admiral Carter called an emergency meeting with his top military leaders. Captain Miller sat next to General Frank Daniels, the head of Ground Forces Training. On a large screen, Lisa Donovan explained her breakthrough. "The Confederation shields operate on a frequency pattern we've never seen before," she said, pointing to her diagrams. "But they have a vulnerability. Our new quantum disruptors can penetrate their shields if calibrated to these exact frequencies." "How quickly can you get these weapons deployed?" Carter asked. "The first batch will be ready in 10 days. We can arm about 20% of our fleet in that time frame." Carter looked at the assembled officers. "It's not ideal, but it might be our only chance. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big." "We need more than fancy weapons," General Daniels spoke up. "My troops have been training for ground combat. From what Captain Miller has told us, most Confederation species are physically weaker than humans. If they try to land troops, we'll have the advantage in close combat." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Miller said. "But we should be prepared for everything." As they spoke, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. A communications officer burst into the room. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's from one of our captured diplomats." "Put it through," Carter ordered, standing up. The screen flickered, showing a brief burst of static before Dr. Wright's face appeared. The transmission was poor, her image breaking up every few seconds. "Earth defense. Attack coming. 2 weeks. Massive fleet. Plan to..." Her voice cut out, then returned. "Population centers first. Disabling communications. Then ground troops." The image broke up again. "Found weakness. Their ships can't... Rapid course changes. Vulnerable to the guerrilla tactics." The transmission ended abruptly. The room fell silent for a moment. "Can we verify it's really her?" someone asked. "It's her," Miller said firmly. "And she just gave us valuable intelligence." Admiral Carter turned to his officers. 2 weeks. That's all the time we have to prepare. General Daniels, accelerate ground force training. Captain Miller, I need attack strategies based on guerrilla warfare in space. "What about our civilians?" asked another officer. "We begin evacuations to the underground shelters tomorrow," Carter replied, "and we move forward our own plans." Lisa Donovan raised her hand. "Sir, if we push production around the clock, we might be able to arm 30% of the fleet with the new weapons instead of 20. "Do it," Carter ordered. "Whatever resources you need, you have them." As the meeting broke up, Miller approached the Admiral privately. "Sir, Dr. Wright took an enormous risk sending that transmission. They'll know she helped us." Carter nodded grimly. "Then we make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain." 2 days later, Earth detected the movement of Confederation ships. They were forming attack positions earlier than expected. Admiral Carter ordered Earth's fleet to take defensive positions behind the moon, hidden from immediate detection. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned vessel USS Defiance, one of the first ships equipped with Lisa Donovan's quantum disruptors. Around him, the crew worked with focused determination. These weren't the experienced space veterans of old science fiction stories. Many had been civilians just months ago. Teachers, factory workers, students, all trained quickly for the coming fight. As the massive Confederation fleet approached Earth, Admiral Carter sent a simple message to all Earth vessels. They expect us to surrender. Let's show them why that was their first mistake. The first battle for Earth lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the surprised Confederation forces retreated, leaving behind destroyed ships and broken pride. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, exhausted but amazed. Earth had won its first major space battle against an enemy with centuries more experience. "Damage report," Miller called out, his voice hoarse from shouting orders through the long fight. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5 contained by emergency fields," his second officer replied. "Weapons at 60% capacity. 4 confirmed kills of enemy vessels." Miller nodded. Throughout the Earth fleet, the story was similar. They had lost 11 ships but destroyed 27 of the enemy's. Lisa Donovan's quantum disruptors had worked better than anyone hoped, cutting through Confederation shields like they weren't even there. In the command center beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Carter received reports from all battle groups. The main view screen showed the retreating Confederation ships, regrouping at the edge of the solar system. "They'll be back," General Daniels said, standing beside Carter. "And with more ships next time." "Yes," Carter agreed. "But now they know we can fight. That changes everything." 1 month after the first battle, Earth forces had expanded beyond defensive positions. Captain Miller now led a special task force of 5 ships, conducting hit-and-run attacks on Confederation supply lines. His current mission was the most important yet. Intelligence suggested Dr. Wright and other human prisoners were being transferred to a more secure facility. The USS Defiance hid in the shadow of a large asteroid, its new stealth systems making it nearly invisible to Confederation sensors. Miller studied the planned route of the prison transport. "They'll pass within 5,000 kilometers of our position," he told his crew. "We'll have a 3-minute window to disable their engines, board the vessel, and extract our people." "Sir," his tactical officer spoke up, "what if this is a trap?" Miller had considered this possibility. "Then we'll deal with it, but we can't leave our people in enemy hands any longer." When the Confederation transport appeared, the Defiance struck without warning. Quantum disruptors hit precisely where Lisa Donovan had predicted the engine controls would be. The transport drifted powerless as Miller led a boarding team across in specialized assault pods. The fighting inside the transport was brief but fierce. Confederation soldiers were not prepared for humans in close combat. Dr. Wright and 12 other prisoners were found in the holding cells, thin but alive. One guard tried to execute them before being stopped, but the rest surrendered quickly when they saw how effectively the humans fought. Miller found Wright sitting calmly in her cell despite the alarms and weapons fire. "You're late, Captain," she said with a tired smile as he opened her cell door. "Traffic was terrible," he replied, helping her stand. "Can you walk?" "I can run if needed." Her eyes were determined despite her weakened state. "I have critical information about their command structure." The rescue team returned to the Defiance with all surviving human prisoners and withdrew before Confederation reinforcements could arrive. As the ship accelerated to faster than light speed, Miller brought Dr. Wright to the bridge. "We thought you might be dead," he admitted. "After that transmission." "They punished me," she said simply, "but they made a mistake letting me live. I learned how their entire military hierarchy works, and better yet, I found others who hate the Confederation as much as we do." 2 weeks later, Admiral Carter listened as Dr. Wright briefed Earth's military leadership. Her time in captivity had changed her. She was thinner, her hands sometimes shook, but her mind remained sharp. "The Confederation isn't the unified force they want us to believe," she explained. "At least 8 species are kept in line through threats and technology restrictions. When they saw humans fighting back successfully, It gave them hope. "Are you suggesting potential allies?" Carter asked. "More than that," Wright replied. "I'm suggesting a full rebellion across multiple Confederation worlds. My fellow prisoners included members of these oppressed species. We made plans, shared information. They just needed to see proof that the Confederation could be defeated." Lisa Donovan, who had been invited to the meeting, leaned forward. "With your information about their shield frequencies and our improved quantum weapons, we can provide that proof." General Daniels nodded in agreement. A coordinated strike with inside help could cripple their command structure. Admiral Carter considered all angles. Earth had held its own for almost 6 months, surprising everyone, including themselves. But they couldn't win a long war against the full might of the Confederation. A new strategy was needed. "Dr. Wright, can you make contact with these potential allies?" "Yes," she said confidently. "I memorized communication frequencies and protocols. With our new encryption methods, the Confederation won't be able to intercept the messages." "Then we have work to do," Carter decided. Over the next 3 months, Earth forces changed from defensive to offensive operations. Captain Miller and the USS Defiance led daring raids deeper into Confederation territory, specifically targeting military installations that oppressed local populations. Each successful attack inspired more resistance among subjugated species. The Zoraxian military commander, Razak, now led the campaign against Earth. He had been promoted after the diplomatic mission. His predictions about human danger, proven correct. But now he struggled to contain not just human attacks but growing rebellion throughout Confederation space. In his command center, Razak reviewed the latest defeats. 3 key military bases destroyed, 5 supply convoys lost, 2 previously loyal worlds now in open revolt. "How are they coordinating these attacks?" he demanded of his officers. "They should not have this capability." "The humans adapt quickly," one officer replied nervously. "And they fight differently. They don't follow standard battle protocols." Razak slammed his 4 fists on the table. "They are primitives. They should have been easily defeated." Another officer cautiously spoke up. "Perhaps we underestimated them, Commander. Their physical strength and aggressive tactics." "Silence!" Razak cut him off. "I want every available ship redirected to Earth. We will crush this rebellion at its source." As Confederation forces began to pull back toward Earth, Admiral Carter sensed an opportunity. In a secure underground facility, he met with Captain Miller, Dr. Wright, and Lisa Donovan. "They're consolidating their forces for a major assault on Earth," Carter explained, showing tactical displays. "But in doing so, they've left their central worlds vulnerable." Miller studied the maps. "You're suggesting we strike at the heart of the Confederation?" "More than that," Carter said. "I'm suggesting we take our case directly to their ruling council." He looked at each of them. "It's time to end this war on our terms." Lisa Donovan placed a small device on the table. "I've developed something that might help convince them to listen." Dr. Wright looked at the device, then at Admiral Carter. "They'll never expect this. The Confederation believes that when threatened, species either surrender or fight conventionally. They have no concept of what we're about to do." "Exactly," Carter said. "And that's why it will work." The USS Defiance slipped through space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge, watching as they approached Zenith Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Confederation. No human had ever been this deep into Confederation territory. Around the planet orbited a massive space station, where the High Council ruled over hundreds of star systems. "Are you sure this will work?" Miller asked, glancing at Admiral Carter, who stood beside him. "No," Carter answered honestly. "But our other options are worse." Dr. Olivia Wright joined them, having recovered much of her strength in the weeks since her rescue. "The Council has never faced a direct challenge. Their security will be focused outward, not inward." Lisa Donovan completed their group, checking her handheld scanner. "The device is ready, Admiral. The Defiance carried Earth's most elite soldiers and its most important leaders. If they failed, humanity might lose its best chance to end the war. If they succeeded, the galaxy would never be the same. Begin approach." Miller ordered. The ship accelerated toward the massive space station. As predicted, the Confederation security detected them only when they were already too close to stop. Alarms blared across Zenith Prime as the Defiance docked directly at the High Council's private entry port, a breach of security that had never happened before. Inside the Confederation station, 7 ancient beings that formed the High Council watched in disbelief as their security feeds showed humans entering their sacred domain. "How did they reach us?" one council member demanded. "Where are our defense fleets?" Another older member remained calm. "This is unexpected. Humans were not believed capable of such tactics." Outside the council chambers, Confederation guards rushed to intercept the humans. But Earth soldiers moved with surprising speed and coordination. They didn't kill when they didn't need to. Instead, they disabled communications, secured key corridors, and moved methodically toward the council. Chamber Admiral Carter led the way, with Captain Miller and Dr. Wright flanking him. Lisa Donovan stayed in the middle of the formation, protecting the device she carried. When they reached the massive doors of the High Council chamber, they found them sealed. Miller nodded to his technical specialist, who placed small devices on the control panels. "We're not here to fight," Carter announced to the guards who had taken defensive positions. "We're here to talk. Your leaders have refused to listen, now they have no choice." The doors slid open, revealing the Grand Council chamber. The 7 council members sat on elevated platforms looking down at the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to disgust. "This violation will not be tolerated," the Central Council member spoke, voice echoing through the chamber. "You will surrender immediately." Admiral Carter walked forward calmly. "We will not. For nearly a year, your forces have tried to conquer Earth. You failed. Now you will listen to our terms." The council members looked at each other in surprise. No species had ever spoken to them this way. "You have no position from which to make demands," another council member said. "Your planet remains blockaded. Your colonies are isolated. You cannot win this war." "That's where you're wrong," Carter replied. He nodded to Lisa Donovan, who stepped forward and placed her device on the floor. With a touch of her hand, it activated. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Then, one by one, all systems in the council chamber shut down. The lights dimmed. The holographic displays vanished. Even the council members' personal devices went silent. "What have you done?" demanded the Central Council member, rising from his seat. "A demonstration," Donovan explained. "This device generates a quantum field that disables your technology within a controlled radius. Right now, that radius is limited to this chamber." She looked up at the council. "We have larger versions capable of affecting entire planets." Dr. Wright stepped forward. "During my captivity, I learned much about the Confederation, including how you've oppressed multiple species across the galaxy, how you've stunted their development and kept them dependent on you." "We maintain order," a council member protested. "You maintain control," Wright corrected. "And that ends today." Admiral Carter pulled out a small data disk and placed it beside Donovan's device. "This contains evidence of collaboration between our forces and resistance movements on 23 of your worlds. Even as we speak, those movements are taking control of local Confederation facilities." The council chambers grew silent as the implications became clear. Captain Miller spoke next, his voice firm, but not threatening. "We don't want to destroy the Confederation. We want to transform it. Equal representation, freedom for all species to develop at their own pace, an end to forced technological dependence." "Or?" a council member asked quietly. Admiral Carter's face remained neutral. "Or we use our quantum technology on a much larger scale, and we share it with every oppressed species in the galaxy." For the first time in their long history, the High Council faced a choice they never expected to make. They had always held the advantage always dictated terms to lesser species. The Central Council member stood. "What you ask would undo centuries of stability. What we demand would create centuries of progress," Carter replied. "Your stability comes at the cost of freedom." After a tense silence, the oldest council member spoke. "Perhaps we have grown too comfortable in our power, too certain of our superiority. The ancient being looked directly at the humans. You fought when you should have fallen. You advanced when you should have retreated. You united others when you should have stood alone. There was a hint of respect in the voice. These are not qualities the Confederation values, but perhaps they should be. Over the next hours, the first true negotiation between Earth and the Confederation began. Lisa Donovan deactivated her device as a show of good faith, allowing normal operations to resume. Guards were dismissed. Diplomats were summoned. Word spread quickly throughout the station, then to nearby worlds. The humans had done the impossible. They had forced the High Council to negotiate as equals. As the formal agreements took shape, Admiral Carter stepped aside with Captain Miller and Dr. Wright. "We're not just changing Earth's future," Wright said quietly. "We're changing the galaxy's." Miller nodded. "All because they underestimated humans." "A common mistake," Carter replied with the first smile any of them had seen from him in months. "One they won't make again." 3 days later, Admiral Carter stood before the assembled representatives of both Earth and the Confederation. Captain Miller, Dr. Wright, and Lisa Donovan lined up behind him as he prepared to make the official announcement. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," Carter stated, his voice carrying across the chamber and being transmitted to billions across the galaxy. "Earth and its colonies are recognized as equal partners in what will now be known as the Galactic Alliance." Murmurs spread through the alien representatives. Many still seemed shocked by how quickly everything had changed. "Our war proclamation was not just a demand for recognition," Carter continued. "It was a declaration that all species deserve freedom and self-determination, that no civilization, no matter how advanced, has the right to control another." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We came to the stars seeking friendship. We were met with an attempt at conquest. Today we deliver something unexpected, a new path forward for all our peoples." As Carter finished speaking, representatives from formerly oppressed species moved to stand with the humans. The old order was already crumbling, replaced by something new and uncertain, but filled with promise. The greatest shock to the galaxy wasn't that humans had fought the Confederation to a standstill. It was that when victory was within their grasp, they had chosen to build rather than destroy, to unite rather than divide. And as the new Galactic Alliance formed around principles of freedom and cooperation, the species of the galaxy learned an important lesson about humanity. Threaten them and they become formidable enemies. Respect them and they become invaluable allies. The proclamation that shocked the galaxy had changed it forever. 5 years had passed since the formation of the Galactic Alliance. Earth had changed in ways few could have imagined before the war. New technologies transformed daily life. Alien visitors walked the streets of major cities. Humans traveled to distant worlds for business, education, and adventure. Admiral William Carter, now serving as Earth's representative on the Alliance Council, stood at the window of his office on the rebuilt space station orbiting Zenith Prime. The view still amazed him. Ships of dozens of designs coming and going, representing worlds that had once been enemies or strangers. His communication screen lit up, showing Captain John Miller. Though still a military officer, Miller now commanded the exploration vessel Horizon, named after the ship lost in the first contact disaster. "Admiral, good to see you," Miller said with a smile. His face showed new lines, but his eyes were brighter than during the war years. "You too, John. How's the expedition to the outer systems going?" "Better than expected. We've made contact with 3 previously unknown species, all pre-FTL civilizations, but showing great promise. The Alliance protocols for first contact worked perfectly." Carter nodded with satisfaction. Those protocols had been largely written by Dr. Olivia Wright, based on everything humans had learned from their own disastrous first contact. "No misunderstandings this time?" "None," Miller replied. "When we approach with respect rather than assessment, it makes all the difference." After they finished their conversation, Carter prepared for the upcoming council meeting. The transition from Confederation to Alliance had not been smooth for everyone. Some former council members still resisted the new order, Several powerful species that had benefited from the old system continued to push for greater control. Lisa Donovan entered his office, carrying new data tablets. Now the head of Alliance Technology Exchange, she worked to ensure that advances were shared fairly among member worlds. "The Zoraxians are causing problems again," she said without preamble. "They're claiming our quantum technology violates some ancient treaty." Carter sighed. Razak's influence, no doubt. Following the war, the former Zoraxian commander had retreated to his homeworld, refusing to acknowledge the new alliance. He gathered like-minded conservatives around him, forming what they called the Traditional Order. "They're not just complaining this time," Donovan continued. "They've blocked alliance ships from entering 3 key trade systems. The economic impact is already being felt on several worlds. They're testing us," Carter said, "seeing how we respond to pressure." Across the galaxy, Dr. Olivia Wright was facing a different kind of challenge. On the planet Nexus, a former Confederation military world, she led efforts to help the local population adjust to self-governance. Centuries of control had left them dependent on external leadership. "The water filtration systems need to be maintained by your own people," she explained to the community leaders. "The Alliance can provide training, but ultimate responsibility must be yours." One elder, his skin a pale green, shook his head. "The Confederation always handled such things. We provided resources, they provided expertise." "That system kept you dependent," Wright replied gently. "True freedom includes the freedom to solve your own problems." As they talked, a young member of the community approached with news. "Alliance communication channels are reporting trouble. Zoraxian ships have blocked the Calyx trade route." Wright frowned. The Calyx route was vital for medical supplies to dozens of worlds, including Nexus. This wasn't just economic pressure, it could cost lives. That evening, an emergency council meeting was called. Representatives from all Alliance worlds gathered, either in person or via secure holographic links. Admiral Carter took his place among them, noting empty seats where the Zoraxian delegation should have been. The current council leader, a tall being with crystalline features from a world called Tellus, opened the session. "We face our first major crisis as an alliance. The actions of the Zoraxian Traditional Order threaten the stability we have worked to build." Discussion erupted immediately. Some called for military response. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few even proposed returning to Confederation-style control over disputed regions. Carter listened carefully before standing to speak. When he did, the chamber grew quiet. Earth's role in forming the Alliance gave its representatives significant influence. 5 years ago, humans fought because we had no choice. Today we have choices. He looked around the chamber. We can respond with force, proving that the Alliance is just the Confederation under a new name. Or we can demonstrate what makes us different. "What do you suggest?" asked the council leader. "Direct engagement. I will personally lead a diplomatic mission to Zorax, not to threaten, not to demand, but to listen, to understand why they resist what most of the galaxy has embraced." Many council members objected. The Zoraxians had already rejected previous diplomatic overtures. Some suggested it might be a trap. "Perhaps," Carter acknowledged, "but if we respond to their blockade with our own ships, we guarantee conflict. If there's even a small chance for peace, we must take it." After lengthy debate, the council approved his plan. Within days, Carter departed for Zorax aboard a small diplomatic vessel. Dr. Wright joined him, along with representatives from 5 other worlds affected by the blockade. As they approached Zoraxian space, military vessels moved to intercept them. Carter ordered all defensive systems powered down. "We come unarmed," he transmitted to the Zoraxian fleet. "We seek only conversation." For tense minutes, they waited for a response. Finally, permission came to proceed to the Zoraxian capital, with a military escort. On the planet's surface, they were brought before Razak himself. The former commander had aged, but his eyes still burned with the same intensity Carter remembered from reports of the first contact disaster. "The mighty Admiral Carter comes to Zorax," Razak said, his tone mocking. "Have you come to threaten us with your quantum weapons?" "No," Carter replied simply. I've come to ask why you feel threatened by peace. Razak seemed taken aback by the directness of the question. Peace? You call it peace when centuries of tradition are discarded? When lesser species are given equal voice to those who built galactic civilization? Wright stepped forward. We've studied your history, Commander Razak. The Zoraxians were once themselves considered a lesser species. The early Confederation kept your people from advancing for nearly 200 years. Surprise flickered across Razak's face. This was clearly not common knowledge among his people. The difference, Carter continued, is that when Zoraxians finally gained power, you embraced the system that once oppressed you. Humans chose a different path. For the first time, something besides anger showed in Razak's expression. Uncertainty. What do you want from us? Not submission, Carter said. Partnership. The Alliance needs Zoraxian knowledge and experience, but as equals, not rulers. That meeting marked the beginning of a new chapter. The blockade wasn't lifted immediately. The Zoraxians didn't join the Alliance that day, but a conversation started that would eventually lead to understanding as their ship departed Zorax weeks later. Wright stood beside Carter on the observation deck. Do you think it will work? She asked. Carter watched the planet recede in the view screen. I think we've shown the galaxy another way that humans solve problems, not just through strength or technology, but through persistence and hope. Path forward remained challenging. Old powers rarely give up without struggle. But across the galaxy, worlds that had never known freedom began to flourish. Species that had been enemies for centuries found common ground, and humans, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, became known as the species that had not just shocked the galaxy with their war proclamation, but transformed it with their vision of peace.